Hey there, welcome to episode 113 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 1:20 in the afternoon on Friday, April 25, 2025. Today we're going to talk about the many slices of Vegas. Vegas is sometimes described as a pizza with a few slices, and each slice kind of stands on its own. So there's downtown in the middle where the little ottoman would be, and then the different slices all kind of reproduce certain things in each slice. So you never really need to leave one slice to go to another, which can make for some insular parts of the greater Vegas area. But it's also a way to represent the many things going on with Cafe Genius Impresarios, and Cafe Genius. Cafe Genius, the Impresarios is the audio program. And with really cool technologies, my company here in Vegas, and some of the startup projects that I've described, and so on and so on. So I thought I would just run through a few things as sort of an update. Sometimes I got to talk about positive things, right? So the many slices. If you're not familiar with Cafe Genius Impresarios, it is named for three things. One, Cafe Centro, a coffee shop formerly located in the South Park, which was an actual park, very near what is now the Oracle Ballpark, which is a similar sort of park for baseball. And it was a small coffee shop that was where startups start. It's where Twitter, Jack Dorsey was working on Twitter. Anyway, arguable whether Jack Dorsey actually started Twitter. That's a different thing. But the Cafe Centro was indeed spelled with two F's and was where startups start in San Francisco. Sadly, no longer in business as far as I've been able to determine. I think there was some hope that they would come back, but such is the way. Genius, for the Genius lunches we used to have in the downtown project days, random people get together for lunch now and then. And this is something I've talked about. We need to bring those back, actually. So Genius lunches were a way to kind of casually spread the news, spread the word, who's working on what, what's up, what's down. Sort of not even, well, you would invite people, but it was not invite only per se. Not widely publicized, kind of word of mouth. And it would be like a dozen people or so. It was pretty good. Pretty good time. I think we should bring those back. And finally, impresarios. Those are people who do cool things, spelled with two S's, a correct but less common spelling. So the Cafe Genius Impresarios, hopefully talking about cool things going on in the greater Vegas area and beyond. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes. The show notes contain the summary, which I'll read to you. It's very brief. And only my, what is now 4 shameless self-promotion links. I might cut it down to just the 2. I don't know yet. But for now, it's 4. So let's get started so we can get finished and head into the weekend. And if you're like me, that just means 2 more work days until Monday. The summary of today's episode, a quick update on in-Las Vegas. That's one of my startups. Initiative 2025, that's an effort Cafe Genius is trying to drive. The Colaboratory, that's my other startup. The retrospective, which also includes an introspective, rolling introspective, which I'll talk about more, and more. All in one for the end of April. So I ad-libbed a little bit in there, but you can see the Colaboratory spelled with one L, which is also a correct but less often used spelling. It's my thing. You can see the summary in with the episode description, wherever you found this audio program. The links, I think I will begin rattling through these more quickly. Buymeacoffee.com/ I have no obligation to spend any money on these. I use these for engagement with my listeners and collaborators and the world. I've had both of these for several years, so why not? Buymeacoffee.com/ Dan Hugo, and the associated weekly 5-minute microcast, Buy Me an Update, available at buymeacoffee.com/ Dan Hugo /posts, also linked from the profile page at the top. If you visit my profile page there, it's essentially a freeform link tree. I have links to all of my audio programs, to my various GitHub repository, actually organizations in this case, and a few affiliate links for coffee beans. You can click on those if you like, and you can buy coffee, and I will get some money from that. No additional money out of your pocket. And everything I do is powered by coffee. And I will point out that if anybody does pass some funds through either buymeacoffee.com or Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. That's the next link. If you do choose to support the shows, the projects, the undertakings financially through those, all proceeds do go towards coffee or coffee accessories. That's what powers all of this. Ko-fi.com, like I said, ko-fi.com. The hyphen is the key next to the 0 on most keyboards, sometimes called a dash. /Dan Hugo, that's my profile on Ko-fi.com. And there is another show called Coffee Solo. It is, strangely enough, at ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo/posts, also linked in the link section. That is an aperiodic, freeform show, no set topic, no scripting or notes ahead of time as much as possible. Trying to keep it sort of spur of the moment, spontaneous even, and we'll see how that goes. Kind of a precursor to the upcoming relaunch, official and real relaunch of Hugo Floss. So we'll see what happens. Those are the links. Let's get on to the slices. So we're catching up to May. It's the end of April, a month of global tumult. Global tumult is an understatement, and probably not the end of that. No time like the present to redouble your efforts to pursue some self-determinism in the form of entrepreneurial innovation, right here in the Vegas ecosystem, or maybe wherever you are. By the way, I don't know that I would move to Vegas to do that. So if you're not already here, you can come and visit anytime. We're open. 155,000 hotel rooms, if I recall correctly. That information is available on the LVCVA website, Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, for whom I do not work. It's a little bit crazy to think it's almost May 2025 already. Just yesterday, we talked about Initiative 2025. It was right in January. It's either the first week or the second week. And getting some of those things rolling for this year. But I have to tell you, that is a hill, and it is steep, very steep. And the boulder is not cooperating. I'm, of course, speaking of the ship of Theseus. No, it's the Sisyphean task. Rolling the boulder up the hill, the two-sided hill, I guess, like a bowl. Sisyphean task, that is. So yeah, solo entrepreneurialism is a way forward in these interesting times. Try not to depend on other people or have other people be involved in things. Defer those interactions. I know I'm sounding pessimistic already. I have come to the conclusion that without a competent discovery platform, that is a way to engage. That is a way to engage with people in the larger ecosystem, the Greater Vegas area in my case. It is essentially impossible to build any sort of movement, gain attention, draw interest. There are a few anchors. There are social media content creators here that, by the way, are paid by LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, to promote aspects of the Greater Vegas area. So you basically pay to play to borrow or rent their audience to get some word out, but they don't really cover the startup scene here. And there are awful platforms like meetup.com, which drive people to venues to eat or hang out. And then there are a few elevated players who organize events and get attention here. And that's about it. Not much in the way of innovation for a place that believes it is a global innovation hub. I used to tell people when I worked at Netscape, for example, that some of the summer, I don't know if they were interns, maybe. I mean, they were paid. So summer employees were in from MIT working at Netscape. And they used to talk about stuff that they were doing back at school. And they would literally develop things. They would just, hackathons are kind of a way of life there. And this was sort of true at Harvey Mudd where I went. But MIT's culture is simply more vast, deep, long, far-reaching. Like when you go to MIT, there's just a sort of a presumption that you're going to be an out-of-box thinker. So when students at MIT have an idea, they try to execute on it, and then it eventually becomes some billion-dollar company, right? So I always wondered why a city I didn't always wonder about this city, but I always wondered if anything, any person, company, etc., is going to talk about being innovative, they should do that, but they usually don't. Something to think about. So I'll start off with the in-Las Vegas platform that I'm working on. Why is it taking so long? Because everything takes 3.14159 times longer than you think. Always multiply by pi. Pizza pie sometimes. Remember, the in-Las Vegas platform is built on the MuniBits initiative developed by civic volunteers at Innovate for Vegas Foundation and any other contributors that's part of our outreach, and will be a new way of sharing information in a smart city. I've been calling it information sharing, but I think information awareness might be a better term, so I'll be using that. Traditional news sites are basically print media adapted to web pages. You know, the inverted pyramid, the who, what, when, where, why, how, but we have so many tools at our disposal. We are starting with tech and adapting it to the information sharing rather than the other way around, if that makes sense. So we can take various tools and methods. We can take the modern era of decentralized federation. We can use tools like RSS. We can use a lot of user interface elements and data science tools to render visualizations like timelines. We can make use of long standard things like iCalendar and CalDave so that we can have a community calendar that is standards based and not a WordPress plugin, which is junk. The ones I've seen anyway. So yeah, ideally this would be a great demonstration of civic volunteers in action as far as development of the MuniBits platform, and will ideally be an interesting bit of novelty for our many annual visitors, in addition to offering that novelty to locals here in Greater Vegas. So Greater Vegas, we'll say Clark County, population of approximately 2.3, 2.4 million. At some point I was saying, oh, it must be 2.5 now, but apparently it is not growing that quickly. So it's somewhere 2.3 something million people. And then the Greater Vegas area, the population of visitors to the Greater Vegas area, according again to the LVCVA, and I predict this number will dip a little bit, but they still stick with approximately 40 million people per year for the last 2 years. Post-pandemic, it was a little shaky, but I think so 23 and 24, I think it is, were 40 million. I think the run rate is heading that way, but then we'll see if tourism drops off with economic scenarios. Anyway, among the things that really need to get out there, the state of our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which rarely gets reported on in our legacy local media, but also the standards that I have spoken of previously, like a real and functional community calendar platform that is not Meetup and that is not awful sites around here like tech.vegas, which is just garbage. And not whatever it is the city of Las Vegas, for example, uses to announce its sponsored outreach events. Every time I'm curious to know if my city council person is going to have a community meetup for her ward, my ward, our ward, Ward 6. I have to remember, where was that page again? It's just simply not obvious. And for a smart city, there has to be a better way. That's the idea. Modernity, I should say. Modernity is not just a word. It is a set of practices and maybe a few ideals that need to see the light of day here if we are going to be a global innovation hub. And by the way, we can be a global innovation hub. We don't have to be the next Silicon Valley. Those can be two completely different things. I talked about this, I think it was last week, Made in Vegas. Yes, it was. Manufacturing, making manufacturing one of the anchor points in the shopping mall that is Greater Vegas, one of the anchor stores, I guess. If manufacturing innovation can take place here, especially manufacturing that is resource sensitive and sustainable, given the place where Vegas finds itself in the water sustainability research spectrum, it's one of the strong points of the Greater Vegas area. Southern Nevada and its water situation has led to innovation in water capture, water conservation, measurement, and so on. So incorporating that into manufacturing facilities development and process development and so on. It's interesting. It could be a thing. It could be a strength of the Greater Vegas area as part of that economic diversity plan. Are we going to be the next Silicon Valley though? No. There are other places that are better at that, including the original Silicon Valley. We should be a better Vegas. How about that? So Initiative 2025, I started talking about this right at the beginning of 2025. What a coincidence. Initiative, because first of all, project is a word overused, especially lately with a year after it. Also, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation is using initiative to describe a collection of sub-projects. So if you're going to have an initiative, it will be made up of component projects that form the initiative. So that way you know if you're talking about the top level idea or the implementation projects beneath it. So Initiative 2025, there are a few moving parts. There's a whole list of things, in fact, that I went through during that episode. Finding people who are interested in participation in our ecosystem in what we could call meta roles is tricky. Like being in our ecosystem to know about our ecosystem. Part of the challenge is, and this will be a running theme for all time, getting the word out so people know this is a real thing. I consider it a personal error to have had our first Genius Roundtable cohort made up of people I knew directly. It was a small circle, 1 degree of separation, rather than casting a wider net for a more diverse collection of viewpoints and opinions. And so what we ended up with was, I think, well, first of all, we had a lack of dedication. We had a lack of true interest. Essentially, if you are doing something, here's one of the take-home lessons. If you're doing something and it requires other people to participate because they believe in it or they find some value in it, we're talking volunteering, we're talking mostly uncompensated effort that will have some long tail return someday, maybe. Those people they can do partially. They can say, oh, I know who you are, so I will do it as a kind of, I will consider it as a favor to you. But they really can't do it as a favor to you. They really have to do it because they see and recognize the value proposition and why, even if there's nothing in it for them specifically, the overall value. Volunteer firefighter, if you're volunteering to be a firefighter because you like the fire chief, that's the wrong reason. Because at some point the fire is going to come and you'll be like, I just joined because I know you. That's not going to work. So you have to have people that are interested and interesting, but also doing it for the right reasons. And I think the first cohort was not that, unfortunately. So yeah, that's my something to learn from. I did an entire episode about the ideas that are included within Initiative 2025. Like I said, it's the first or second week, January 2025. At the beginning of this year, the next cohort of the Genius Roundtable is probably the most important over the long term, just because having those multiple viewpoints and opinions from different verticals, if you like. So not everyone from the solopreneur, like I have no employees, I'm doing something in the tech sector or consulting services. That's too narrow a focus. So a more diverse collection of people and personalities following a community of practice approach rather than just everybody sitting at a table once a month, a round table. But here again, getting the word out broadly is critical. And we simply lack the platform in our oasis to perform any sort of horizontal outreach. I could post something to LinkedIn and the algorithm will decide who gets to see it and probably get no real interaction. You'll often see, and I was told this, people in the city of Las Vegas, they post on LinkedIn, and I've heard directly, they're very excited to get the engagement that they do get on LinkedIn. And they encourage city employees to like and share and all the other stuff. So it's like a little echo chamber. So LinkedIn is great if you like echo chambers, but to reach more people that you don't already know, and if you don't already have a network of people who also know people that you don't already know, there's diminishing returns on LinkedIn, not necessarily built for everyone that you want to reach. So many people in Vegas treat LinkedIn as a first tier social network, and you got to post it on LinkedIn, got to have a LinkedIn page. I am finding that to be less and less valuable and less true. So yeah, you should be able to access information without being connected to people and logging in and all that stuff. So something closer to a media outlet, not a social network. So in that regard, having the In-Las Vegas platform up and running in a usable state will be helpful for a variety of reasons, and this is one of them, horizontal outreach. or at least awareness, right? LinkedIn, it's great for reaching connections, followers, and whomever your algorithm tags, but otherwise a smarter, smart city really needs that information awareness path. And we don't have it. Again, we rely way too much on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn. Our local news outlets are mediocre. Some of the, like the Nevada Independent, I like them, but small circulation. They need to grow. Hey, we should make sure that Nevada Independent articles are more visible. They post on LinkedIn and Blue Sky, and I guess Twitter. Some of the other elements require cooperation and collaboration with venues, businesses, and even city or county resources to set up things like the list, which I talked about at length in a separate episode, the local innovator show and tell, which seems unlikely now for 2026 since the CES 2026 timeline fast approaches. But having it in that time frame is a goal to maximize exposure. It's to showcase the people doing cool stuff here in Vegas. So yeah, you can find that previous episode if you're curious. You get a drink of water here real quick. So yeah, the list is part of kind of a showcase concept. I had an entire episode on City as a Showcase, only a few episodes back, wherein we share innovation with our many annual visitors. As always, in addition to our locals, so I'm not completely unaware of the 2.3 million people that live here. The colaboratory, with one L, is coming along in the concept stage in that direction. Wait, colaboratory? Why not like collaboration? 2 L's? What is this? Colaboratory. A laboratory is where you do experiments. A co-laboratory is where you share that laboratory. Collaboration with 2 L's is when you work together on something. You may or may not be working together in the co-laboratory. So it's the idea is to share innovation with our many visitors so that they can see it, feel it, touch it, live with it, and see what they think. Better than walking into, remember Sharper Image? Or Brookstone. Oh, such unusual products in this little store in the mall that I'm hanging out in to kill some time. So why not use the entire city and the full weight of the 40 million people coming here? People don't come to Vegas to go to a Sharper Image or Brookstone store. They stay in a hotel room, perhaps. They watch sporting events or entertainment events. The list goes on. So we should be leaning into that. The fun economy, as they say. Pardon me, I clear my throat there a little bit. Part of the interesting way I intend to go about this is to make use of that information awareness platform to make any innovation, local or otherwise, a part of a visitor awareness experience. So the In-Las Vegas platform is not intended only for locals, but not everything that's interesting for locals is interesting for people visiting. And this is rooted in the MuniBits platform idea initiative from Innovate for Vegas Foundation, which is itself made up of a few different components, including My Muni for my community or my municipality, and Welcome. Welcome is about visitors to a place. So people who visit do not necessarily need to know or have the same perspective on all of the same things that people who live here do and so on. But we can certainly share innovation with the world in a useful way. Now, I need to emphasize again, local awareness is still a big part of the deal. It is important to have some idea what is happening in your own backyard when it comes to innovation and economic diversity and who is doing what. And I did an entire episode on Vegas as a better Vegas, where we talked about the history of Silicon Valley. A major component of Silicon Valley's success and its cultivation of innovation culture was the fact that startups and small businesses and innovation in general would often be, or could be, or would be front page news in the newspaper, print newspaper in Silicon Valley. We do not enjoy that sort of publicity, awareness on the part of our local media outlets. Front page is for crime and politics only, and maybe some resorts being torn down. But with so many people visiting the greater Vegas area each year, historically the number might go down in the near term. It's important to basically let people know when they get here that there's a little bit more to Vegas than the Strip and how much money they're going to contribute to our local economy. Attention is part of the loop of startup development, especially in this case. So the SRC, the Sentiment Sentiment Research Colaboratory. I should learn how to say that better. Will definitely make use of the In-Las Vegas platform to not only feature itself, but to feature the innovations and their availability locally to visitors from far and wide. Would you stay at a particular resort because they had a particular set of innovations available to their guests in the rooms or somewhere on the property? Maybe. The Downtown Project Retrospective. This is the final section, the retrospective and rolling introspective. The Downtown Project Retrospective is actually growing in importance, believe it or not, as we look around and see some odd choices, some strange priorities, some questionable opinions regarding how best to support the economic diversity plans, if the plans are even good, especially as they relate to startups in or proximal to technology. I had the word "to" in there since I forgot. Who types up my notes before this? I got to fire that person. The retrospective, though, would seek to learn from those in the Downtown Project cohorts who pursued any startup, tech, or otherwise. So even though today's decisions are important, it's the decisions and actions and outcomes of yesterday that we can actually apply because the footprint is very similar. Geographically, basically the same place. Of course, the innovation, whatever that the Clark County people want to build down south and some of the other areas that are blossoming in the Southwest and some other stuff going on in Summerlin. So there's more going on, but certainly the Downtown Project footprint was large enough, recent enough, and topical enough that it would be worth taking a serious look at and with feedback from people who were there. The introspective, and more importantly, the rolling introspective, that is, it's not one and done, like, every 5 years we're going to ask people, you can chime in whenever. We'll seek to gather signals from people here in Greater Vegas, whether full-time residents, part-time visiting entrepreneurs, maybe others, regarding the ecosystem, how healthy they believe it is, and what they believe they need to continue or begin their entrepreneurial journey. So what do they need from city or county or state, or do they need access to capital? Is there a strong enough culture of innovation and access to educated or capable workforce or other resources? Yeah, what do you need? Who knows? They'll probably tell us. If you're beginning to see how a modern information awareness platform will make this sort of outreach easier, we are all on the same page. The most interesting thing about these two great tastes, that is the retrospective and the rolling introspective, is that we should be able to apply some of what we can gather from the retrospective to what we gather on a rolling basis from the introspective. That is, the questions and topics should align so that we can compare at least one type of apple to another type of apple. If we can align some of those resource considerations, some of the decisions made and the outcomes perceived from the recent past and the present into the future, we might have a reasonable handle on what the future actually is, or at least some possibilities as we steer or are steered into those possibilities. Curious times ahead, I have to say. And yeah, so my startup efforts. So first of all, my efforts in the nonprofit space are not only about local innovation, which is hard to find in the form of local innovators who are interested in civic volunteerism. So we have to change that. Becoming more interesting and more interested in your surroundings and being interesting while you do it is critical to having a useful and usable culture of innovation, one that could grow and become interesting, more interesting. So the civic volunteer stuff, the nonprofit, the charity, the outreach, some of the stuff that we're going to do with that organization will remain nonprofit, and it will be part of our communities. So it won't be a for-profit venture. Some of the community outreach stuff we can do as nonprofit. Perfect. But we also are spending time and initiatives, time on initiatives, so initiative development, to enable connection, communication, and collaboration with other civic volunteer organizations or cohorts of one or more people, because the whole thing with civic volunteerism is people have to actually do it. So sometimes there's one person interested, so one person doing stuff by themselves could take a while, trust me. But if there's a way to connect more easily than Google and LinkedIn, like identifying cohorts and projects and initiatives and projects and how collaboration could occur and so on. So that's what we're working on, as well as our Agile for Volunteers initiative to make volunteer workflows a little bit better. So the things we're working on at the moment are aimed at collaboration beyond Vegas. The MuniBits project is not even Vegas centric. It's any place that wants to have an information awareness platform. So we would invite people to work on that as they see fit. And the list continues. So a lot of what's happening here is about using the nature of Vegas and its 40 million visitors to be innovative, to be a smarter smart city. And the people that make that happen are a part of that. And sometimes that isn't always clear, especially to the people making decisions at the top. More decisions should be made perhaps at the bottom. That is where I'm going to leave today's episode on this Friday, April 25, 2025. And we'll catch up with you next week. In the meantime, plenty of work to do. Take care now.